First of all, was this something that was on the roadmap prior to the pandemic? 'Cause like I said in the introduction, an awful lot of companies have kind of made this shift, but the reasons for and the arguments for remote service have been around for a long time. Let's put the context against the time. When did you kind of make the implementation, and was it on the roadmap already, or was it a reaction to the challenges that we've got around lockdowns and zero touch service, all of that kind of
So
stuff?
no, it wasn't in our roadmap initially. The COVID situation, obviously, I think advanced that need to have something in place pretty quickly. So we started actually on this kind of roadmap with IFS at the beginning of the year, so around April, May time, so right at the UK lockdown time.
Right.
And of course, primarily we wanted to provide some kind of support to customers. We couldn't dispatch our engineers in the way that we were used to doing, whether that was for direct line product support or some kind of technical support. And we piloted both the UK and German service organisations within Panasonic Heating and Cooling. So we run those two pilots in line with each other, and they ran for around a month in each country. And actually, since then, we've advanced quite quickly. So we've rolled it out to 9 other what we call NSCs, national sales companies. And we have around 60 to 70 technicians that are using IFS in one form or another within Panasonic currently.
That's interesting. Let's talk for one moment about that rollout, because that's something that a lot of the people paying attention to this and watching this now, the service directors that are part of the Field Service News family, that's something that's going to be important for them, because how quickly that can be rolled out when we start to unravel some of the benefits, which we'll do across how quickly it can be established. It sounds like for you guys, at least at Panasonic, once those pilot trials were in place and once you had the kind of the processes as well as the technology, it was potentially a relatively easy proposition to kind of then expand. Is that the case?
Massively, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how you built.
Yeah, it was very easy for us to roll out. And in fact, actually, the hardest thing for us, I think, was the mindset change internally with having colleagues starting to use this and trying to think of the tool as a different way of working rather than seeing it necessarily as a way that was stopping a certain way of working. It was an additional tool within their toolbox to apply. So we've certainly looked at this in the last 6 months that we've kind of been live since starting the pilot and trying to create some kind of governance structure about how it should be used, when should it be used. And it's actually created a lot of more thought about how we work now and in the future. So, for example, training. We do a lot of training for our contractors and for distributors, but actually a lot of that training is kind of face to face. Does it necessarily need to be that way? And that's a discussion that we hadn't really asked ourselves until we'd started to use sort of a remote assist technology. And actually, we are now looking at our training centres having both the capability to provide face-to-face training, but also remote training as well, so that we can outreach further and provide training to more people than we may necessarily been able to do without this technology.
Would that lead to potentially being able to expand the service offering into new regions as well? Because that's something that I kind of come across quite a bit. And I think we'll probably touch on that as well when we bring Sarah into the conversation, because it's something I hear quite a lot, certainly from certain organizations that it's one of the big benefits is, okay, well, we don't have to get the guy on the plane or the engineer behind the windscreen. So is that something that's kind of factored into your thinking there, or is it starting to evolve?
It's certainly evolving, and I think certainly a lot of the time with kind of field-based service, field-based interventions, it's not necessarily an efficient use of people's time, certainly technicians' time, because a lot of the time is spent driving to site. And that's, if you have a country like the UK or like Germany, you're in a central city region, sometimes the longest part of the job can be just the drive into site. So we've found that it can be 1 or 2 hours driving to site if a technician is driving into London, for example, and actually they know what's wrong with it. Sometimes 10 or 15 minutes of being on site, and then it's the same journey back home or back to the office. So it's quite an inefficient use of time. So what we found actually as part of the pilot, and since we've gone live with this technology, is that our resolution time has been really quick. I mean, we've had cases where we've had a heating problem in a client's home, an end user's property. And actually, we've been able to use the IFS and have the heating operational again within 16 minutes. We know it was 16 minutes because the call was recorded. And actually, we've used that as a really good example of why the technology is so helpful, because normally that would mean maybe a day's wait for an engineer to be available, and then the engineer would drive to site and then some time on site. And yes, that could be something like maybe, a 2-day wait for the customer, where in this example, 16 minutes, heating's back on, client's happy. It's helped us and it's also helped the client. So